Just think about it for a second. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, has hundreds of billions of stars. And that's just our galaxy. The universe has hundreds of billions of those. I mean, the numbers are so huge, they're almost impossible to wrap your head around. It just feels like it has to be inevitable that we're not alone, right? So, if the cosmos is supposed to be this crowded place, why does it feel so incredibly empty?
And that's it. That's the one single haunting question that's been driving our entire search for alien life for decades. The logic, it seems totally solid. The universe is ancient, it's enormous, so life should have popped up all over the place. And at least some of that life should have become intelligent, built some tech. But when we actually look out there, when we listen, all we get back is this deep, profound silence.
You know, this exact problem has a name, the Fermi Paradox. It's named after the amazing physicist Enrico Fermi. The story goes that back in 1950, he was just having a casual lunch with some colleagues, and he supposedly just blurted out this simple but universe-altering question about all these aliens we assume are out there. Where is everybody? And seriously, that one little off-the-cuff remark has been echoing through science ever since.
Now, what makes Fermi's question so powerful is the math behind it. He basically figured out that even with technology that's kind of modest, nothing crazy like light speed, a civilization could spread out and colonize the entire galaxy. Now, 10 million years sounds like forever to us, but our galaxy is about 10,000 million years old. So in the grand scheme of things, 10 million years is just a blink of an eye. Colonizing the whole Milky Way should have been a pretty quick job for any civilization that got an early start. And yet, we see nothing, no signs of some giant galactic empire. So how have we tried to solve this paradox? Well, the first, most scientific approach is maybe the most obvious one. You just listen, right? If there's an advanced civilization out there, maybe they're broadcasting something, and it's our job to try and tune in to the right station. So this organized hunt for aliens, which we call SETI, really kicked off back in 1960 with something called Project Ozma. An astronomer named Frank Drake pointed a radio telescope at a couple of nearby stars, just hoping to catch a signal. He didn't find anything, but it was the start of a huge global effort. And over the years, we had these tantalizing moments, like that famous WOW signal in '77. We've had massive searches like Project Phoenix. By 1999, the search even came to our own homes with SETI at Home, which was this brilliant idea to use millions of our personal computers to help sort through all the cosmic noise. And to listen for those faint whispers across unimaginable distances, we had to build some colossal ears. For decades, the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico was the biggest one on the planet, a 1,000-foot-wide dish just sitting in the jungle. It was an absolutely key instrument for SETI, always dedicating some of its precious time to scanning the skies, just listening for a message. And this methodical approach was really perfected by one of the biggest searches ever, Project Phoenix. So NASA had a SETI program, but it got canceled by Congress. Then private funding came in and brought it back to life. And this wasn't just pointing a telescope at the sky randomly. It was a targeted campaign. Scientists zeroed in on about 800 of our closest sun-like neighbors. And for every single one of those stars, they monitored almost 2 billion radio channels. I mean, talk about a painstaking search for a needle in a cosmic haystack. And yet, for all of that listening, this right here remains the most compelling and honestly, the most frustrating piece of data we have. On August 15th, 1977, an astronomer named Jerry Amon was looking at a data printout from a radio telescope, and he saw this. It was a powerful, focused signal from a patch of sky where there were no stars. It checked all the boxes for a real-deal alien signal. He circled it and just wrote, "Wow," in the margin. But here's the kicker. In all the decades since, we've listened, and we have never, ever heard it again. It was a single whisper in the dark, and then it was gone. Okay, but listening for signals kind of assumes that they're far away, and that they're trying to talk to us. What if they're not broadcasting? What if they're already here? And this leads us to a second, very different kind of search. The Watchers. So this is a huge shift in the method. You see, SETI uses these massive telescopes to search distant star systems for some kind of technological fingerprint. But the field of ufology, it looks much, much closer to home. It's all about analyzing eyewitness reports, trying to find physical traces, and documenting what they call close encounters happening right here on our planet. It basically turns the search from an astronomy problem into an investigation. And don't think for a second this was just some fringe effort. For a while there, this search was taken so seriously, it went all the way to the top, to the highest levels of global diplomacy. In 1978,
The question of unidentified flying objects wasn't just for late-night talk shows. It was a subject of an official hearing at the United Nations.
I mean, this was a massive deal. The whole thing was kicked off by the Prime Minister of Grenada, Sir Eric Gary, who actually wanted the UN to set up its own agency just for UFO research. The hearing had testimony from some of the most respected researchers in the world, like the astronomer Dr. J. Allen Hynek. And maybe the most powerful moment was when U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Lawrence Coyne gave his own first-hand account of a terrifyingly close encounter he had while piloting a military helicopter.
All right, so we've explored listening for them and watching for them, but there's a third, much more radical answer to the Fermi paradox, and that's the idea that the silence is a lie, that they aren't just here, but that they're secretly in control. This takes us deep into the world of the believers. So for this way of thinking, the paradox gets solved by just flipping it completely on its head. The silence isn't a lack of evidence, it's evidence of a massive cover-up. These stories suggest that aliens aren't just visiting Earth, but they're secretly living amongst us, often in disguise. And one of the most famous of these theories is the whole idea of a covert reptilian species influencing human society. You know, a hidden hand guiding our destiny this whole time. According to this theory, the alleged goals of this reptilian agenda are, well, they're pretty specific. They include things like subjugating humanity for our resources, creating human-alien hybrids to sneak into positions of power, and rolling out mass mind control programs so humanity never figures out what's really going on. It really paints a picture of this silent, invisible occupation of Earth. You know, a really common thing you see in these narratives is the complete reinterpretation of human history. Big events and famous people that we see as part of our own story are totally reframed as examples of alien intervention. In a way, these theories are so compelling because they offer a complete, even if it is extraordinary, explanation for a world that can feel really chaotic. The silence, from this point of view, is just a carefully maintained illusion.
So we have the listeners, who are scanning the void for a message. We have the watchers, searching our own skies for visitors. And we have the believers who argue that they're already running the show. And after all this searching, all these different approaches, we're left right back where we started, with the great cosmic silence.
Of course, it is absolutely crucial to remember that a lot of seemingly unexplainable things have very normal, very human explanations. Back in 2015, social media on the West Coast just blew up with pictures of this bizarre streaking light in the sky. Was this it? Was this the big one? Well, the answer came pretty quickly from the Pentagon. It was a scheduled but totally unannounced Trident missile test from a Navy submarine. It looked incredible, for sure, but it was 100% human-made.
But even when you account for all the missile tests and the hoaxes, that fundamental question, it still remains. After decades of listening, watching, and theorizing, the paradox that Enrico Fermi figured out over lunch is as stubborn as ever. The universe is still silent. So why? Is it because there's just no one out there to talk to? Are we using the wrong tools? You know, like trying to get an email on an old AM radio? Or is the real answer to where is everybody something so strange, so profound, that we haven't even figured out how to ask the right question yet? The search continues.